to episode 26 of Connections Restored TV. I'm so excited to have a guest expert speaker with me today. Today I have Chris Thomas. He is an amazing person with an amazing story of addiction and recovery. What I have personally found is that recently the statistics of addictions have gone up exponentially because of the COVID crisis going on in our country. And I felt very called because of my own past and my own story of addiction and recovery to share another person's transformational journey with you, because addictions can be really, really painful. And what I've learned along the journey is that I did it to numb out so that I didn't have to deal with the pain of what was actually going on in my life. And the more people I connect with on this journey, I realized that they're starting to make these connections as well. And I felt it really important to share another person's perspective of addiction and recovery, because I feel that having support and a system and being connected to someone who is actively on the path of recovery, recovering from addiction, recovering from the painful thoughts that we have, recovering from the traumas that we all experience that led us to the path of addiction, is super important. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to let you all get a sense of who Chris Thomas is and why I personally felt called to share him with all of you today. Because as I said, Chris is an amazing person with an amazing inspirational story that really touches my heart every time that I hear him share a story with me. Chris is originally from Canton, Ohio. He is born on 12/24 of 1970 and is 49 years old. He is a huge sports fan, a fan of the Browns and the Indians. Go Ohio teams, right? We all have our team. He loves music. Who out in that audience loves music? Doesn't it just fill our soul up? He loves Motley Crue, and he himself is a musician. He's a drummer. He's a very creative and very gifted drummer. He has a 19-year-old son and is current divorcee. He loves to cook. He loves to eat. He loves to live life. He loves to enjoy food. And currently, he's also loving running and weight training. So Chris, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I know that you are really going to inspire a lot of people with your story. I was curious if you were interested in sharing a little bit more about yourself with the audience, a little bit more about who you are.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for letting me be here today. It's a pleasure of mine. Like you said, I am from Canton, Ohio, raised in Canton pretty much all my whole life. I started out as a young kid, going to school, going to high school, playing sports, raised around a bunch of crazy people. My early years were spent in a family of pretty much alcoholics. My mother, my uncle, my grandfather. So being raised in that situation, in that environment, has it taught me. Plus with my friends and everything, growing up, it was the norm. We would go out on weekends when we were kids, or we were teenagers, and we would have somebody at the drive-thru that we knew that would sell us alcohol underage, and that's how it all started. We thought we were cool. Drugs didn't get into the situation until later, much in life, and like in my late teens and in my early 20s. But that's how it all began. I feel that, yeah.
So it sounds to me like you witnessed the other important people in your life, like your parents and your grandparents. Alcohol was a commonplace in your household.
Sure was.
And at first, it sounds like it was just kind of a experimentation, something that you did for fun with your friends. You went out and it was kind of like a fun little adventure.
Well, when I as a kid, my parents and my uncles and such, they would, I would see them, drinking. It was fun. They were all having a good time, laughing. I can remember some of my earliest memories. I can remember going to the bar with my parents and all of their friends being there, and everybody, hey, there's Chris, everybody buy him a Pepsi, throw me a quarter to play video games. It was a good time. It was fun. It was fun for me. And I remember I was a little kid. Hey, when are we going to go back to the bar? When are we going to do this? And it was fun, and that's what I knew. And then, later on in life, as I got older, I seen where my uncle was, especially, he was an alcoholic. He went to rehab to fix his problem. And fortunately for him, it worked. My mother, unfortunately, she passed away back in 2003. She was an alcoholic, and that's probably pretty much what killed her. And as I got older, I saw myself going onto that path. And then we can get on just later on in the video, but after time went on, it wasn't fun anymore. Yeah. And there started to become physical problems, mental problems. But I'll touch on that here later.
Yeah, no, I thank you so much for being so candid with all of us and so open and honest. And what do you think, right? Because it sounds to me like there was a path presented to you, and we are not always aware of the paths that are presented to us in the beginning of recovery, right? It's one of those things that we kind of learn along the way, our choices, right? But it sounds to me like the universe kind of opened up a couple of paths to you. One path that allowed one family member to gain recovery, and it worked for your uncle, and then another path that led continually down the path of addictions.
Correct.
Specifically, would you say that in your family alcohol was more prevalent than anything else?
Yeah, absolutely. Alcohol was. Everyone in my family at one time or another drank. It was, and it's really funny how addiction is. With my uncle, my mother, and my grandfather, it controlled them. But with my father and my grandmother, it didn't. So I don't know if it was a genetic thing or what, or maybe, as we've talked before, maybe they had a hole that they were trying to fill inside of them and it just ran away. But I don't know. But in my case, that was me. But I'll get into it more. But yeah, it's a funny pattern how addiction actually grabs a hold of people. And it's like a tornado. It'll hit this house and that next house. It's really weird.
So you said that, with certain family members, alcohol controlled them. Would you say that in time, alcohol and maybe other drugs control you?
Oh yes, absolutely. Starting out, when I was younger, like I said, it was more of a thing that we did to have fun. We thought we were cool, so-and-so at the drive-thru, they're our friends, we can get some beer. Or we can do this, or we can do that. And it was fun. Parties and stuff in high school, it was fun. But it's after graduating, living life more, and going through what life's hardships are with relationships, and I found myself drinking, or I would find a significant other, and they would drink, and together we would drink. And then as time went on, just like when I was a kid, watching my parents and family drink, thinking it was fun. Now I'm around people who use marijuana. Oh, it was fun. I gotta try it. Once I did that, and here I'm starting to do that. Cocaine. Wow, that was fun. As soon as I did cocaine, that was it. But that's how it progressed in my life. And my parents divorced when I was young. I was about 5 or 6 years old, and that was a traumatic event for me. Relationships that I've had in the past. That, I felt that I was personally in love with that person, but maybe they weren't, and they would leave. That was traumatic events. And I found myself drinking and using more and more, to the point to where even if I was over a relationship or I was feeling good, now there's a reason to drink. Oh, I feel good, so I should drink. Or I had a bad day, I should drink. Oh, I just made more money today, I should drink. So it's just started to be more, and I should use to the point to where I would wake up in the morning, and now the only thing I can think of is I'm gonna use. And I don't care about this job, and I don't care about this relationship, and I don't care about what's going on with my life or what people or friends. I don't care how many friends I lose. I've got to find that substance I've got to use.
And what age would you say that you started that exploration phase where you were kind of going through the drive-through with your friends and getting beer? How old were you then to the point where you realized you had a problem? Like you just said, you would wake up in the morning and it didn't matter. The job didn't matter. The relationship didn't matter. Money didn't matter. All that mattered was using.
Well, I would say that it started with, I was raised, when my parents divorced, I was raised by my grandparents. My grandmother always had a bottle of something. And she was one to stay up late, go to bed at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and I would just be like, oh, I wish you'd hurry up and go to bed so I can, get into the liquor cabinet. But it started out, I'd say 12, 13 years old. And then as time progressed, we're 16 now, we have a driver's license. A buddy of mine would come over and pick us up and we'd go to the drive-thru. So from the time I was, I'd say 12 or 13 years old until mid-20s possibly, it was an experimental stage. Especially when I was 21 and could be able to go to the bars. And it wasn't as fun anymore, drinking with my friends because, now there's that trying to sneak it or doing, underage drinking. Now we can drink, which even made it worse because at that point in time, I was liking it. And maybe looking back now, I might have been addicted. But so I started finding myself in bars. But I was one of those functional alcoholics where I held a job and I would still drink. And I'd go in hungover, lack of sleep. And as I got older, then bringing in the substance abuse with, cocaine, trying hair. I've tried pretty much everything that there is. Then there was a point in time too when I would just, who cares about a job? I just got paid, I've got this money. I have a place to live, but I blow all my money. And then the next day, I don't have any money and I'm still going to work. It was a vicious cycle. It was horrible. Yeah. So I would probably say, to answer your question, I'd probably say from the time I was 25 until a few years back, that was when I feel that it had a hold of me. Mm-hmm. But from the time I was 25 up until a few years ago, I really wasn't thinking that it was a problem. I knew it was a problem, but I really didn't care. I really didn't start caring until about 3 years ago.
So just so we give people in the audience kind of a sense of how long it took for you to arrive to this is a problem and something needs to be done. If it was a few years back, we could maybe say that was around age 45. So from 25 to 45, we're talking about 20 years.
Sure, yeah, that's correct.
Okay, and I'm curious, what did you lose along the way that made you start to awaken to the point where you started to think about seeking help? Well,
when I was younger, I would lose a job, but I would always achieve another job. I'm a welder by trade, so having a trade like that, I could go from here to there. And I really didn't look at it as a problem. People said that I had a problem, but I didn't want to hear that because, I like to drink or I like to use. And, I still have a job and I'm still functioning. Then the trouble started coming. Being arrested, going to jail. Ended up in prison a few times. And even then, when I would get out of prison, I still think it's not a problem. Look, I went so long without being in trouble. It was just a fluke. But then it happened again, and then again, and then again. Definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results. Well, I was insane. I guess that when it started to become a problem with the family, my son, my ex-wife, my parents, everyone in my family's passed away. My uncle, my mother, grandparents. The only person I have left is my dad and my son, really. But when they started distancing themselves from me, I guess maybe it was a wake up, but I was still in that phase like, I can still drink and do this as long as if I keep it, hidden, but you can't keep that hidden, So I guess that's when I really started to realize, hey, something has to be done. And then there's something inside my brain that it somewhat flipped. It was like, now it's time to stop and I want to stop, but hey, I can't. So before, when I wanted, when I knew that it might have been a problem, I really didn't care, I just kept going and it didn't bother me. Now I want to stop and I can't. So now, I'm not in prison, I'm in prison in here. And it was horrible. So I had to find a way, I had to find a way.
I love a few points that you touched upon there that I think that only people who are suffering deeply with some type of emotional or mental sadness and addicts can definitely resonate with, and that is getting in trouble, specifically with the law, over and over and over again, and not really seeing it as a problem, right? Also, when you're a high-functioning user, which I definitely can relate to. I was also a high-functioning user. I could hold jobs and, do things, pay my bills, and so that made it okay in my head. But my friends were coming to me. I can definitely relate to that, where people who love you are coming to you, and your mindset, your frame of mind, your way of thinking is so distorted that you can't even hear what they have going on. So I was wondering if you could speak to that for a moment, right? Because I feel like only addicts or people who've suffered traumas can understand that, most people, when they go to jail or prison, you've been to prison, it sounds like several times, that that's a wake-up call, right? They'll do it one time, and then, if they have it within their heart, and they have it within their soul, and they have it within their emotional being, right, so to speak, right? That's the wake-up call when they change their life.
Right.
But being an addict and having that kind of a mindset, it was a fluke to you. So can you speak to that just a little bit more?
Well, I probably, when I reference that, I would probably say that when I say it was a fluke, was I never, from the time I was drinking to the time I started driving at 16, 17, 18 years old, I would drink and drive, but I didn't get in trouble I didn't get my first DUI until I was, 35. So I had a good 15 some years of drinking and driving, and I get my first DUI, and man, that's just a fluke. You know what I'm saying? But you're really gambling. That's the same with addiction. When I went to prison, I had that same mindset for the first time. I'm thinking, it's not gonna happen again. Just don't do what it was I did to end up here again. Don't drink as much to get another DUI. But then the second one came, and then the second prison stay came. And then the third DUI came, and the third prison stay came. Something's going on. I have to figure out what it is. And the funny thing about that is the whole time I'm racking my brain thinking, well, if I don't do this, and if I don't do this, and if I don't do this, and this isn't gonna happen, and I'm not gonna end up here again. But really, and I didn't want to face the fact because I loved to use at the time. But the fact of the matter is it was substance and alcohol that was causing my problems. And a lot of people out there who don't use it say to themselves, well, yeah, dummy. My sick brain didn't want to hear that. My sick brain wanted to keep using, but my sick brain wanted to find different ways of doing things. But in the end, as you use, you're all going to end up going to the same place.
So I'm curious if we can switch gears a little bit for the audience. And you had mentioned that the two people that you cared about most in this world, your father and your son, started to recognize a greater problem, and they started to distance themselves from you and your life. So would you say that was the catalyst to kind of awakening a bit to, this is a problem, and I need to do something different? Yeah,
definitely. Well, there's a lot of things that has happened to me and realizations that I've had that had me, come to that. That was just part of it. My son and my father. Other things, like there were in between prison terms. There was times where I would get out. I would still use, not as much, but then I would start gaining things. Like I buy a car, I might have a job. I start saving money. And then I lose it all again. So it's kind of like an up and down flow. My son, there was a point in time where, he was little enough, and you think, man, just like when I was little, oh, dad's cool, this and that. As he got older, he started to realize. My ex-wife used to be on me all the time, if you're gonna do this, you're not gonna see your son. I don't care. Hey, he's gonna be 18 one of these days, he's gonna be around me, but the thing about it was, the deal breaker was, when he turned 18, 19 years old, he started distancing himself from me because of the way I was. My father was tired of seeing me in and out of prison. I ended up moving in with him, living with him for a while. Screwing up, and he got tired of it. He's sick of it. So I guess there come to a point where I just said to myself, listen, don't you see your life slowly fading from you, slowly fading from you, slowly fading from you? Don't you see this? Sure, your son and your dad are still around, but now they're distancing themselves. There's going to come a time where you're not going to get a job. Where are you going to be, under a bridge? What are you going to do? Your dad's not going to be here forever. What are you going to do when he goes? Your son, he's going to go enough, or he's going to go off when he graduates. He'll find somebody, he'll get married. He's going to get, where are you going to be? You're going to be alone. And in my point, and also in my brain, I was so, with relationships with women, I've been hurt so many times and lost relationships thinking, oh, it's their fault. They cheated on me, or they did this, or they did. But in reality, there were a few that they did that. But in reality, there are a few of them that have been there that if I wasn't sick, coming home from the bar after work at 2 o'clock in the morning, puking in the front yard, they got to come out and bring me in the house. Who the hell wants to be in a relationship with someone like that? Right? So it's those things that, looking back, there's something wrong with me. I'm the problem. Okay? I'm the problem. But alcohol's still saying, no, they're the problem. They're the problem. No, it's not. No, they're not. I'm the problem. You're the problem. The alcohol, you're the problem. Drugs, you're the problem. But now, unfortunately, I'm at the point where I'm so far gone that I want to stop now, but I can't. And now it's got a hold of me. So now what do I do? A lot of people commit suicide. I have a really good friend of mine some years back who was in that same situation and killed himself because he couldn't go home. He had no money, he had no friends, he had no family. He was in a room on his own, and he was using, and he couldn't go no more, and he couldn't find help. And so he did what he did. And I didn't want to end up like that. Yeah. So much more to live for.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you found a drive inside of you. You connected, right? There are people on this planet, I truly feel they get to a point where they're sick and tired of being sick and tired, and they can connect to a what I call a very fiery place inside of them, where the desire to live outweighs the desire to continue to slowly die.
Sure.
And it sounds as though you connected to that.
Yeah.
And so what did you do next? Like, what sort of treatment or treatments did you seek out? What worked for you?
Well, all the times that I was in trouble in my 30s, I was court ordered to go to different rehabs and different places. And once again, with that mindset, hey, a lot of guys say I'm gonna fake it till I make it. Fake it to make it, So you go through rehab, doing everything they tell you to do. Every program they tell you to go through, everything that they tell you to do, you do, just to get out of there. To use again. Because, in the back of my mind, I'm like, okay, hey, I'm here for 4 months. It's only 4 months. I'll be dry until then, or I'll be sober until then. But as soon as I got out, I knew right off when I hit the door that I was going to use when I left. This last, it wasn't even a court-ordered thing. I got to the point to where I was just, I was sick and tired, and so I checked myself into rehab. And there's a difference when it comes to checking yourself into rehab or being ordered to go there. Being ordered to go there, you don't really want to be there. So you're thinking, once I get out of here, I'm gonna do what I want. I can't wait to leave. But when I checked myself in, I took it serious. And I could have checked myself out at any time I wanted to, and I stayed for a few months, and I gained as much knowledge as I could. And that was the start of everything. That's when it started. I had time to think. I had time to be alone. I had counselors who were very knowledgeable, who, instead of saying, this is what the effects of it is, of alcohol in your body, this is what happens, they gave me the reasons why. So they gave me the knowledge and the education of what substance will do to your body and use will do to your body. I didn't know this before. So educating myself about what drugs and alcohol and the use will do to you, not only physically, but mentally and emotionally. And as I'm learning this stuff, I'm sitting there thinking, wow, that's me. Wow, that's me. And then they're giving me a cure for it, what to do to heal this part. And I started using it, and lo and behold, it works. It works. And then and what really kept me going, the incentive kept me going, is as I started healing and staying away from substance day by day, Now my relationships with my son come back. Now my relationship with my father comes back. Now I'm waking up in the morning and I'm not hungover and I'm feeling good. Now I go to work and I'm not tired throughout the day. I don't go in hungover. I don't go in, now I'm saving money. Now I want that watch. I'm saving, I'm buying that watch. And there was a long time I didn't have a phone. Everybody has a phone. I didn't have a phone because I bought a phone and I sold it for drugs. And now I can't even call the drug dealer because if you get drugs, I don't have a damn phone. But actually, now I'm starting to save money. I buy a phone, and I start progressing. Now I have clothes. Things are starting to get better and better. And if that's not incentive to stay sober, I don't know what is. Yeah. And now I look back and I'm like, why would I ever want to even go back to that? Mm-hmm. And now I have the energy to work out and run on a daily basis. Lifting weights, eating right. Everything. Food tastes better. I love waking up in the morning, going outside and smelling that morning air. Those are little things that I took for granted. Sunsets and sunrises. That's the stuff I took for granted being a user because I didn't care about that stuff. I didn't care about any of that stuff. All I cared about is that next hit, that next high. That's all I cared about. And there's so many things in this world that God put here for us to look at and to see. I was missing out on. That's living. What I was doing before wasn't living. I was just existing. You know what I mean? Yeah. It was tough.
Perfect. So yeah, it's really, really powerful. And I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing what tools you utilize on a daily basis to continue this healthy habit, this way of being connected to life and living in life. Like, what do you do on a daily basis to stay in life?
Oh, that's a good question, Amy. There's a lot of things that I to stay connected. Working out was one thing I've always done when I was young. Because when I grew up, I played football. I was always played sports. Football and baseball. I was always in shape. When I was using, I wasn't. So now that I'm back into the sobriety, staying in shape, running every day is a key thing for me. It helps me connect to nature. It helps me connect to my body. Working out as well. Talking to my son on a daily basis, whether it's a text or a voicemail or whatever, that's something, and my father as well. That keeps me going because those are the only two family members I have left. And just knowing that they're there is enough for me to stay sober. Because I know as soon as if I was ever slip back into that old life, they would be gone. There's no doubt about it. Things that I used to be interested in that I didn't when I was using, like playing drums, listening to music, going to concerts, going for walks, whatever it may be. It's all come back now. And now that I'm sober and looking back at when I was using it, I didn't do that. Now that I'm sober and I'm doing it, there's much more of appreciation for it. So now I wake up in the morning and instead of thinking about going to get high or going to get drunk, I think that run or, let me go jam on my drums or, whatever it may be. Mm-hmm. But that's what keeps me in line. That's what keeps me straight in line,
So it sounds to me like creating healthy habits around physical fitness, mm-hmm. building deeper relationships with the people who are most important to you, rebuilding and rekindling those relationships, mm-hmm. Connecting to the creative parts of you that kind of brought out a sense of feeling alive, like music and drumming, mm-hmm. and then also connecting to nature with walks.
And also, I failed to say also a connection with a higher power. Mm-hmm. Because, that's one thing that, I was raised in a Catholic family. Mm-hmm. And there was always that, even though the way my family was, there was always church and there was always, knowledge about God and what they do, what he can do for you. Mm-hmm. And I even slipped out of that when I was using. Didn't even think about that. But when I got into rehab this last time and I started that's nothing that came back. And I'm gonna tell you, prayer is powerful. Mm-hmm. It really is. There's plenty of examples I could say I won't go into right now, but it's prayer. The higher power is, in my opinion, is a must because they say to give everything to God and let Him control your destiny, and things will work out. And it's hard to surrender, especially when you're as hard-headed as I am, and it took forever for me to really learn in 40 some years. But yeah, higher power is definitely something that is a must. I believe, you know, whether it's, you know, the Lord or that rock over there, whatever you feel your higher power is. But yeah, it's definitely a must for I believe.
Yeah, it sounds very powerful to rekindle and reconnect with a connection to a higher power of our own personal understanding, and it sounds like that's been really powerful in your life, rekindling and reconnecting to that relationship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm curious if you wouldn't mind sharing one final piece of wisdom with all of us. You know, all that you've shared so much with us around your journey, where it began, what your family life was like when you were young, you know, being married, having a son, having jobs, losing jobs, going to prison, in and out of prison, you know, getting DUIs, things of that nature, to the place where you got led to recovery and you started to gain a reconnection back to self, which led you back to physical fitness, which led you back to creating stronger connections with your relationship with your father and your son, a connection to nature, a connection to your higher power. And you've taken us through this really powerful transformational journey, Chris, and I want to thank you for that, sharing that with all of us today, because I know that you've definitely touched my life with our interview today, and I have no doubt you're going to be touching other people's lives and sharing something that's going to really ignite a fuel inside of somebody that may feel like they're struggling. So what final piece of wisdom would you like to share with us?
Never, ever, 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 ever give up. Never give up. I know what it's like to be the prisoner of addiction. I know what it's like. I never thought that I would be here. I thought that I would die as an addict. That either it was going to kill me or I was just going to die in a ditch somewhere because I didn't have anything. Never give up. Never give up. There's always something there. If there, you know, I use substance to fill a hole inside of me that you know, substance never filled, and I would always use more, thinking that hole was so deep that I could never scratch the surface. Never give up. I searched and searched and searched and searched, and I finally found the will and the reason to come out of it, and I'm grateful for what I have today. So if I can do it, you can do it. There's no problem, there's no doubt about it, you know, because I was lost, you know, I was really lost there for a while. And my journey will be different than others, but you can do it. Don't give up. Don't give up.
Super powerful. Never give up.
Never give
I've really felt that in my heart as you said that, and sharing that with all of you. I know I felt it in my heart, and I'm sure you all could feel Chris inside of you as well. I'm curious, one last question, Chris, before I let you go. I know that you have shared with me that you've had a few people reaching out to you that are currently struggling with addiction, and that it's felt really good to be able to just connect with these people and share the things that you have learned.
Right.
And I think that that's really wonderful, right? Giving back.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably
Definitely.
Feels really good.
Sure.
Would you say that?
Oh, absolutely. You know, when I was in rehab, you know, and AA, you know, you would have people come up that would share their stories, or I would see people go to, you know, folks in AA that's been sober for 20, 30 years and go to them for help. And I was envious of them people because I wanted to be that person eventually. Well, you know what? I haven't been sober that long, a few years. Not even some, really. But I'm that person because, you know, a lot of people that have known me for a long time that's used look at me and they say, "What, you're sober? Are you kidding me? What did you do?" I want to do that. And, you know, I share my story, not as in depth as I did here, but I share my story with them in, you know, in a brief, but maybe I just said something little to help them. And I've had people, you know, that have reached out to me that have come back a few times. And it's fantastic. It's fantastic to know that this kid from Canton, Ohio, who was lost, is now touching people's lives. And there's not that many, hopefully more. But yeah, and that is also another drive for me to stay sober. you know. Now I feel like as if I'm somewhat of a role model, and I can't let them down. I can't let myself down. Yeah. So look where it's led me. I'm here on this great TV show with you, Amy.
Yeah, thank you so
Sure.
much, Chris. If people feel connected to you and would like to reach out and just ask for advice or share their story or just say, hey, you know what, you really inspired me today, where can they find you?
My personal Facebook page, Chris Thomas. You see my face. You see my face there on my profile picture. You can send me my private message, and I'll be able to, and I'll receive it, and I'll answer. I answer everybody. I don't care if it's 1 or 1,000. Hit me up.
Beautiful. Thank you again so much, Chris. Thank you so much for being here today with me and for sharing with everyone on Connections Restored TV. Again, this is episode 26. This is a candid conversation in addiction and recovery. Today's guest expert speaker was Chris Thomas. My name is Amy Boswinkle. I am an intuitive and a women's energetic mindset, marketing, and strategy business coach. I am an affiliate of the Bill and Callie Show Network. Bill and Callie are such amazing people. I highly encourage you all follow them on their Facebook business page, The Bill and Callie Show. If you feel connected to me and would like to see more interviews with people as amazing as Chris Thomas, you can follow me on my business page here on Facebook, Connections Restored, or you can personally friend request me, Amy Boswinkle. Thank you again so much for your time today, friends. It has been such a pleasure serving you, and I will talk to you all again soon.